Let's try that one more time.
There we go.
There we go.
I left. I was like, oh no.
All right. Welcome everybody. It's 1:02 over here, Pacific Standard Time. Waklisi Damadichki. Hello, how are you? My name is Asa Wright. I'm the executive director of IP3, which is Indigenous Peoples Power Project. We're grateful you're able to share space with us today for our Skoden Talks with the Homies series. This series is our way of creating space and networking and getting to hear from community members, community leaders, people who are working in their community, doing amazing work, and we just want to uplift and empower that work and other folks and see how people can get working in their own communities and just share like all the different facets and layers of work that people are doing and contributing to the community. So I'm really grateful to share space with you all today. Skoden Talks with the Homies is changing a little bit in that we are blessed with a new host, and that host is going to be Sage Chanell. And so we're super excited to have this conversation today and welcome her to IP3. Welcome her to Skoden Talks with the Homies. And we just want to get to know Sage a little bit more before we start seeing them in host mode. But I'm super excited and so blessed and happy to share space with you today, Sage. And I'll go ahead and let you take it away so that you can introduce yourself.
Well, hello, relatives from all over. As Asa said, my name is Sage Chanell. I am from Norman, Oklahoma. Hagilashi Shamamo. I am absentee Shawnee, Ponca, Otoe, and Lakota Sioux. I am a former Miss International. I also work here in Oklahoma with the Oklahoma Youth TwoSpirit group. So that's a new program that we had just started here recently. And I host my own drag shows here in Norman, Oklahoma also. So if you're ever in town, come see me at Red Brick.
Great. We're so glad to be speaking with you today, and we're so glad that we found a host. This is our informal way, kind of like a really informal TED Talks, if you will, for our community, just to kind of reach out and see what people are doing, what kind of work, they're working on it in their community or in their movement spaces, or just what that looks like. So in the work that we do here at IP3, you know, our mission is to provide nonviolent direct action training and support to Indigenous communities taking action in defense of their homelands. And so I think that we can get a really kind of narrow view of like, what does like action work look like? What does movement work look like? And we want to be focusing on bringing our whole selves into these spaces. And so I think as indigenous people, right, like that includes like, you know, who we are as cultural people, who we are as spiritual people, our food, our traditional foods and food sovereignty practices, you know, our body sovereignty, our two-spirit relatives. Like it can, our work can look like a lot of different things, but still be in this realm of what we call work. So we're just grateful to have you here, and grateful to have a new host, because we've really wanted to bring a life to this, and it's just kind of also been like a journey to see like what should this look like, and what do our communities, our community members want from this type of series, or talking or making connections with folks. And so we're just really glad that you were able to take that on for us. And yeah, it's great. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I grew up with my absentee Shawnee family. That's my mother's side. My grandfather was our ceremonial chief, so I'm very traditional in our Shawnee ways. And so growing up, there wasn't really a lot of representation of Two-Spirit or any kind of things in the ceremonial ground. And anytime I would ask, you know, was there anybody like me growing up, everybody was kind of like, well, we just didn't talk about it. So growing up, it was very, very bold lines of male and female gender roles. And I never fit into any of that. So growing up, that was kind of like, I feel like I need to find change. There's got to be something out there to where I can dance as a female. I identify as a woman. I'm transgendered. And so growing up, that was really hard, especially in our ceremonial spaces. And so when I got about 24, I found out we had TwoSpirit Society all around the Turtle Island. And so they invited me to the Tulsa Two-Spirit gathering. And so they had a stomp dance going on there. Growing up, that's all I've known is just stomp dance and stuff. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, could I come dance? And I was like, I don't want to be there for the whole weekend. I was like, because I was like, I've got things to do. I was like, but I would love to come dance. And so I got introduced to a lot of the leaders from across the island that are big impacts in their own communities of being ceremonies. And in these Two-Spirit societies, you get to share spaces with people and actually be in ceremony from the regions. And so that was really, really cool for me to actually get to be a part of. And so I've been really involved with that since 2013. I think that was in the first year I finally went to a Two-Spirit Society gathering. And ever since then, it's just, we've been going, and I'm now the co-chair for the Central Oklahoma Two-Spirit Society. Since COVID, we are not active, but we are still a group. In 2016, I competed for Miss International Two-Spirit. I won my first try, so woo woo. I'm not the first Oklahoman, but there's a few others that have won. I was the 19th Miss International Two-Spirit. So yeah, and then we come here today, and with the Two-Spirit societies also, it's always been kind of taboo trying to get kids involved, because we do have those younger kids that are growing and coming into their own. And so to finally have a youth Two-Spirit program come up here in Oklahoma, it's a really big thing. And it's actually led by mothers and their parents that, and I'm just a mentor for them. I'm Auntie Sage to them. I did some drag tutorials for them. We went to go see Distant Thunder at the American Theater, or the American Museum here in Oklahoma. And so, yeah, we've just been doing little great things with the little kids. And it's amazing to be a mentor to the youth, so.
Definitely. Yeah, there's so much I can relate to there. For folks that don't know, I'm identify as two-spirit and trans as well. Um, and I was actually just giving a talk to a class earlier this morning about my experience. And I first found Northwest Two-Spirit Society. Um, that was my first introduction to a two-spirit society, and man, it was like life altering, like to be in that space where for the first time I felt like I didn't have to explain any aspect of myself, and like to have those ceremony and spiritual places together. Oh man, the community, just the connection. Like I spent a fortune traveling to Seattle just to try to be in that space, so
Yeah.
it's powerful.
Oh, very much. I get a sense of just like a reset when I go to those gatherings. It's just like my body needs that, my mind, my soul, my everything. It needs that reset. Be around people like me and to get introduced to the new generations too. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And I like it's it's so cool. Like aging is really like a gift, I think, especially for two-spirit and indigenous communities, like because our life expectancies are really low and to begin with. But I mean, to be able to age and then also like pass on some of that wisdom and experience and work with youth, I mean, wow, it's a really big blessing for me to be able to do some of that work, but also just to like experience youth in their own space. And like I think that like youth are so far ahead of where probably you and I, grew up and how we grew up and like what they're exposed to.
Sorry, someone was trying to call.
Oh, no worries.
It was Buffalo Barbie.
Nice.
But yes. So yeah, so this year the International Two Spirit Gathering is Barbie. Barbie girl, I'm saying sorry.
Jump on IG.
Call me later. I know you're in. But yeah, the International Two Spirit Gathering is in Montana again this year. So if you know anybody that is Two Spirit or anybody that's interested, please get a hold of them. It is a lovely gathering. All the beauties will be there. I'd love to be a former and come help and help all the girls. It's just nothing but love there. So
Yeah, and something you and I were talking about earlier too is just this cultural shift within our own communities of a two-spirit grand entry. With gatherings coming up this weekend, can you touch on that a little bit and your experience with that?
yes, so um, when I won Miss International, I've not really been introduced into the powwow scene. I've been more in my tribal ceremonies and my circles, and so being introduced into the powwow circle, um, it was a lot scary because at the time it was still kind of taboo, I guess. And so over the years, I think it was like a couple years ago, right before COVID, we finally got to come be in the Gathering of Nations and we were invited in Grand Entry. And I believe one of the Miss Internationals got to go dance with them too. So yeah, it's exciting. It's new. A lot of the older ones still don't get it, but I think it also helps too when they have these switch dances. The switch dances also kind of open that door for our two spirit to be themselves. I mean, it can be a funny thing, but a lot of our two spirits take that thing as a serious thing because we want to be represented. We want to feel accepted and loved in those circles as well.
Definitely. It's I remember my first two-spirit grand entry. It was here in Portland, where I'm calling in from today, and it was at one of our biggest powwows here in the state, which is Delta Park Powwow, and it was really a special um, opportunity to be with a group of two-spirit people and be experiencing that all at the same time. And yeah, I've definitely felt that where it's like some people are just not understanding what it's about or not necessarily being disrespectful in any way, but just like, why is this necessary? But like the emotions that come from feeling like you have a place within your community it's you can't put words to it, right? Like it's so magical, and to be able to express yourself and to dance the way that your spirit moves, like wow, it's incredible. And I'm so glad that it's moving, you know, and that a lot of people are now introducing that, or even having signage and language, you know, letting people know that they are safe to dance the way that they want, is really amazing.
It's amazing, especially like even in the stomp ground world, or in the stomp ground, the stomp world. Just being able to dance and shake shells as a trans representative, it's been a big deal. And here lately, there's been a little bit of a step back, but I mean, as long as we are still making spaces and making sure we are visible and being seen, I think in 10 years, I think we have a lot of promise. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like the youth that are coming up behind us, even like they're blowing it out of the water. I mean, a lot of
They're
them.
groups, like
Yeah,
they're
yeah, for sure. I feel like I'm left in the dust in some
yeah.
instances, but I'm so grateful for it, right? Because I mean, that's like, it's showing that our lived experience and the lived experience of our elders was worth it, right? Because now these youth aren't even having instances where they're coming out necessarily. They're just like, yo, I'm here, world. This is me. And so they're not pausing to be like, oh, is it okay to be me? They're just like, we're here.
Even with my little group here in Oklahoma, they're freaking just how bold and brave and just to be able to find that love and be able to speak with their parents. I mean, I think that is just so amazing. I could not have done it growing up living in a small town called Little Axe, Oklahoma. That was so scary. Like I had seen um, gay guys and lesbians get tortured and beat up, and like to now live in the day to where these kids are just living their best life, transitioning at a younger age. It's freaking amazing. I'm like, I wish I had that courage. Would I change anything in my growing up? No. I feel like I grew up when I needed to, and now getting to see the kids grow up the way they, I think everybody's in the right space and time.
I totally agree with you. And yeah, throughout all the hardships and the trauma, everything. I mean, the joy even. I'm glad that I was in my time that I was meant to be in. Um, so with Two Spirit folks, you know, Two Spirit being that umbrella that really encompasses like gender, sexuality, just the fluidity of our culture and the fluidity of just being a human being, right? Um, with that, um, traditional role of Indigenous folks, it seems like a lot of us Two Spirit folks, even when like before we had a terminology or a language for like what our identity is or what it meant, often we're taking on those traditional roles, you know, that we were in before contact. Um, and so, how did you get involved in your advocacy work, or like what moved you into that space?
Uh, Honestly, it just everything, how everything in my whole life, it just falls in my lap, and you just take a deep breath and you go with it. I was dating this guy at the time, and um, they didn't know my feelings of wanting to come out as trans. Coming out, like I never had a coming out as a gay male. That was never a thing. I was always very feminine and very outspoken. And so I never had a coming out for to be a gay man. And I never identified as a gay man. Even growing up when they were like, you're gay. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I didn't know what that looks like. But it lit a fire under me. My boyfriend's father, he was like, yeah, he goes, I heard you want to shake shells at the stomp grounds. And he's like, you will never shake shells. And so that lit the fire in me, because I was just like, you know what? We went home and I was like, that kind of bothered me. I was like, I was like, when people tell me I can't do something, that really like ignites the like, okay, I'm gonna show you.
Yeah,
And so I got home and I was like, I have to share something with you. And I was like, I don't know where we're gonna lead from this. And I was like, and I hope you're still around. I was like, but I was like, I will still love you as a friend. I was like, too. I was like, but I was like, I'm I have to take the next step. I was like, I'm scared to death. I was like, I might lose family. I might lose friends. I was like, but I was like, my soul, I was like, I feel more feminine and I feel like I need to be more in those lady roles in my ceremonies. And so he was like, okay. And we didn't stay together, but he knew what had happened and what was said to me. And from that day, that's when I finally started trying to find out, where are these two spirit gatherings? Where are these being held? What is allowed? Can I be my authentic self? And so that's kind of where it all started with just that. And then to actually become the co-chair for the Central Oklahoma TwoSpirit Society, that was a whole nother thing too. They were just like, I think you could be our president. And I was all like, really? And I was like, I'm the youngest. I was like, there's so many more mentors. I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I was like, I feel like y'all have so much more to teach me. And they were like, you have a good following. I was like, the kids, the people, they listen when you talk. They like, we will be here. They say, if you will just step up into that role, we will get you where you need to go. And so I was like, again, I was like, let me take this deep breath. I'm like, dude, are we ready for this? And so we leaped into that and we got more people to join our TwoSpirit Society in Oklahoma City. And then after that, they were just kind of like, hey, did you know we have a reigning queen? We have a Miss International TwoSpirit. And I was like, what is this? Like, I was like, okay, I'm listening. I'm listening. And so they were like, yes. So they're like, we know you did some pageants before in drag. So they're like, it's kind of like that. They're like, but it's representing our people. So I was like, it sounds like this is a job for me. Like, I was like, let's go. And like, luckily that year, it was in Texas. So I was like, well, let's make a trip because anytime I do pageants or anything, I don't want to tell nobody that I'm entering the pageant. I just want to come in and kill, slay, and be done with it. So we came there to Texas. Got to meet a lot of the leaders from around everywhere. The pageant, someone was trying to be shady. Someone messed up my CD. They scratched it all to crap. Like we did sound check the day before, and we were supposed to have brand new CDs where they were just made. And so when we went to go do my talent, I was like going through the motions, and it stopped, and I was all animated, and I was like, hold on, red, like, what's going on? And he goes, someone scratched your CD. And I was like, oh no. I was like, what? He's like, I can clean it off. He's like, but I think it's done. So I was like, oh my gosh. So go back. It only played like 5 seconds later. Threw my hands up. I was frustrated. And I was like, I just lost the pageant. Like, oh my gosh. So we get ready for grand entry. They're about to name name everyone. They was like, so there's like, we're not going to give awards tonight. There's like, the person that won tonight won all categories. So we're not just going to go ahead and just announce them all. We're just going to go ahead and announce our second place and our first place. So the second place got called. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, I felt defeated. And then they called my name and I was all like, what? So one of the elders that was on the judges panel came up to me afterwards and he goes, girl, that was the funniest skit. And I was all like, excuse me? And he goes, that skit, he's like, that was hilarious. He's like, it was bad. He's like, that was so good. And I was all like, that's not what was supposed to happen. I was like, someone messed my CD up. He goes, what? He goes, you played it all so well. He's like, you won hands down. He's like, you did so good. So I was like, oh my gosh. So, little fun fact of Miss International.
I love that. That's amazing. Overcoming adversity everywhere.
Shady queens.
I love that too. What you said earlier about about being told no, because I definitely take that on as a personal challenge. I'm like, okay, let's see.
Yeah, and it just, I try not to let it like piss me off, but it's just kind of like, oh my gosh. And I still face that to this day, especially in my ceremonies. Some of the leaders that are now head over our ceremonial ground, they've said some cruel things to me, but it's like, okay, I got you, girl. Like, I'm still gonna be here. I'm still fighting to find my place here, and I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna make it, baby. So
Yeah, for sure. No, I could relate to that too. I mean, it's the joy that like exudes from your body when you're able to step into your authentic self is like so amazing. Like there are no words for it. And I remember being in a situation where I was like, I'm going out. I'm a grass dancer, and so I was like, I'm going out. This is happening. This is going to be amazing. It was for an event for a groundbreaking of a cultural center in our area here. And yeah, I got threatened. Like these guys wanted to stab me because they're like, you shouldn't be here, and I was, or you shouldn't be doing that. And I was just like, oh my god. And thankfully, I had some, auntie elders who came in and were like, nope, this is not happening, and kind of split everything up. Um, and then really kind of some of them, question like, is that really what you want to, where you want to be? Is that really the space that you want to be putting yourself into? And it made me question a lot, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I'm not safe. But like, this is literally the way my spirit moves. Like, I have to do this. I've been like looking at this since I was, a toddler, and that's for me, that's mine, and I'm glad that I didn't listen to that voice of self-doubt. I'm glad that I stepped into that and was able to own that for myself, because it's amazing what comes from it once you're actually able to be in your space.
And honestly, growing up with my grandpa being our chief, I wish I would have had the courage to face him because he was a very strong man. He's one of the men that put the fear in me. Like I don't know why, and he never made me. He never gave me a reason to feel that, but I respected him so hard and just everything he did. He was a really good chief and he took care of his people. And I never wanted to offend him or let him down. So when I would try to butcher them, he's like, no, like, it's okay. He's like, you can, like, when he'd be out in the garden, he'd be like, well, let's practice this song, or let's practice this dance. And so there was only one other girl, cousin that I had. And so he'd be like, you go with her, okay? And I'm like, okay. So he never like told me no. I'd be in dresses and stuff, and he would just laugh. And I did not realize what that was until I was older, that it was his acceptance. Like he let me do that. And like, I honestly wish I would have had the courage so I could be in those spaces, and it would have been a lot easier for me now. Because right now I feel like me coming out later, it's like everybody's like, no, they know that old person and they don't want to let go of that old person, and they want to keep me down and keep me not depressed, but they want to just keep me down. They don't want to let me grow. So that's the only regret I probably feel in my whole journey, is just not coming out sooner. So
Yeah, I think I can definitely relate in that same way. And I think those people, like, I haven't really touched on those people before, but those people are so important to us, right? The people that meet us where we're at and see us for who we are and come with that acceptance. Like, those people are so important, but most of the time, in my experience, they've been the silent ones, right? They won't speak it out loud, but they'll be like, okay, you go over there, or you're welcome in this space, or you do that. And so it's like, for those people out there listening, and maybe you haven't, ever said anything, the power of just speaking that out loud, oh man, it impacts Two Spirit folks so much. So like, don't be afraid to say those things and to show, your acceptance, because I mean, to show that we have a space, to show that you see us as who we are. Just wow, so powerful.
yes, very much. With my grandmother, she finally gave me my acceptance. This one's always a hard story. I'm going to try to shorten it. But with her, growing up, she always kept saying, oh, you're going through a phase. You're going through a phase. And so I was like, no, it's not a phase. I'm just me. And finally, she was starting to get sick. And so I moved back home. I had moved to California, moved to Tulsa, was finally living my best life. And then she was getting sick. So I was like, I need to move home. I need to be with her in her final days. And so I moved home, and she goes, cook for you because I love summertime. My birthday's in July. And so summertime, I love fried green tomatoes and fried red potatoes. And so she's like, I'm going to fix your favorite for you. So I'm going to cook. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I told grandma, I was like, we've got to do it early though, because it's my birthday. And I was like, I've got a thing to do that night. I really didn't really talk about my drag or anything with her, but she knew. And so I was like, okay. I was like, well, I was like, I've ate. Thank you so much. I was like, grandma, I was like, I've got to go start getting ready. I was like, I've got to go put my makeup on. And so she's like, can I watch you? And I was like, yeah, you want to watch me? I was like, grandma, it takes me a while. I was like, I turn music on, get in the mirror, I dance. I was like, it takes me 2 hours. I was like, but it's really not, it's just me. So she's like, okay. So I pulled her a chair up to the mirror. We were sitting there talking and she goes, or I get done and she goes, wow. She goes, it's not a phase. And I lost it. Like I just cried and I hugged her and I was like, thank you. And she goes, why? She's like, I said, because I was like, I've been wanting to hear those words, not those exact words, but I was like, that's like, you're okay with this. And she's just like, I'm always okay. She's like, I'm just always afraid. She's like, I don't want nobody to hurt you. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to be harmed. She's like, that's my only fear for this. She's like, but she's like, you've got a strong team behind you. She's like, and if anybody messes with you, she's like, you tell them to come see grandma. So
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I remember talking with my dad kind of in a similar way. And I actually asked him, you know, would you be all right if I was a grass dancer now? And he was short and sweet about it, but he was just like, do you think you can keep up? And that's all he said. And those were that was the moment for me where I was just like, oh my God, yes, thank you. Like that was his only concern. You think you can keep up? Heck yeah, I can keep up, Dad.
like, I got this. Trust me. I've been
Yeah.
practicing a long time.
Exactly. No, I love that. What do you, there's a lot of, I don't know that you can pinpoint anything. Like I definitely can't pinpoint like one thing. I think it's many things, but like, what are you most proud of in the work that you're doing right now?
Ooh, just being available whenever they need to, when I'm called upon. Honestly, I just since COVID, I went through some dark stages. I didn't know how to handle COVID. I didn't know how to be in spaces. I didn't. It was just a lot. It was a dark area for me as soon as COVID hit because trying to be trans and trying to be the most ladylike and be accepted, and it just got really hard. And so I finally came to a point last year to where they were like, we need to pull you out of this. You know, you were doing such really good work with the community. It's time for you to get back out. And so when they were talking about these talks with the youth, I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, I was like, just give me a heads up. I was like, what we're gonna do. I was like, I'll let you know if I'm available. And so they were like, oh no, you're available. Like you are doing this. These kids love things like, and I was like, okay. I was like, I don't want to be the head of nothing. I was like, I want to mentor. I was like, I want to help. I was like, I just don't want to run it. And so they're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, right. Like, so as soon as we start doing our Zooms with the kids. That was the most amazing feeling, just to sit there and talk to them and hear their stories and know that they are so much loved. Getting to see the kids and their parents loving them unconditionally. That's what makes it feel so good to me, to be able to see that in this day and age. It's just beautiful. So
Yeah, I mean, I know the COVID shutdowns and like moving to virtual spaces and Zoom and IG lives, that's been hard on so many folks. And I have definitely felt really disconnected from my community. But I loved how, like, because in our area, something that similar happened where we started having some of the organizations here do like a Two Spirit Youth Hour, like once a week. And so they would get to connect on Zoom and um, you know, they gave them prompts and stuff to talk about at first when they were being all shy and getting to know each other. But I found that was super important, you know. And like at first, I was, you know, um, it's funny because right before the pandemic, I was working in suicide prevention, and we were needing some new tools, and I found Zoom, and I was telling my boss, like, I think, we should probably buy a Zoom account. It's probably going to be something that we're going to use. And I remember my boss being like, oh no, we don't need anything like that. Nothing, that's never going to take off. We can still do conference calls the way we've always done it. We don't need to really move that way. And then everything shifted, and then everybody was on Zoom. But just keeping those connections were so important. Um, I think for the youth, man, like not having those, in-person times and having these clubs available, because we also have a Two-Spirit youth group here in Portland, which I'm super proud of them, and the work that they continue to do, and the events that they have. They have Two-Spirit youth proms at one of the native schools here now, and so it's amazing to see how far we've
have to connect the groups. I would love to see that.
Definitely. So you talked a little bit about like your path to royalty, but like, wow, like it feels like a huge responsibility, but also like a huge blessing to be like a representative for the community. How did you take that on?
That also too. So I was met with some adversity, and I was met with some not so good feedback right off the bat, because they were just kind of like, don't make this bigger. The elders, I was confronted by a couple of the elders. They were like, don't make this bigger than what it needs to be. And I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, there's like, y'all's around here just parading around. And I was like, the way I was taught, I was like, here lately is like, we're trying to be visible. We're trying to make spaces for these people, young and old. I was like, what does that look like if you're trying to tell me to hide or back down? And so he's like, well, I'm just saying. And I was like, I was like, the way I walk in life, I'm always very respectful of everyone, respectful of myself, respectful of everybody's feelings. I was like, I listen before I speak. And so it's worked wonderful for me. I was like, I'm never like trying to be like, oh, you've got to accept me. You've got to learn what this title is. And I was like, it's never been like that. I was like, I speak to people that want to listen and want to learn. And I was like, it's gotten out there now. I was like, it's done amazing. And my reign was a year and a half. So that was a very, very long reign. And the girl before me, she got her year cut short. She only had 8 months worth so well, Spirit Wildcat. So she actually extended hers a little bit during mine, and I was fine with that too. I was like, girl, I was like, this is a long reign. I was like, I do not mind sharing some of my year with you. And so she got to travel around the powwow scene. I got to go coast to coast, talk to colleges, go to the societies that were holding gatherings, and just being that representative, like seeing the little kids or even the old ones that were interested in, just to see them see a Two-Spirit queen with a beaded crown. It was like something like, I felt better. I felt like I had won Miss Indian World. Like I felt like I was it. So to be able to travel and see people and inspire them and question, like people questioning that, it was so good. And those same elders after my reign, they came back and they were like, thank you for proving us wrong. They was like, you did amazing. They was like, you did it with grace, kudos. So I was like, thank you. I was like, I was not going to listen to you. I was like, I'm not to be disrespectful. I was like, my body told me no. I was like, we've got to keep pushing. Like, respectfully, I hear you, but I'm not going to listen. Like,
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't. Yeah, it really is like, I mean, I think we're always going to run into those places where we're going to be questioned on like if we're being too out or whatever that looks like, or whatever people have expectations of what this looks like, as if there's just one way for it to look, right? But seeing representation, seeing the places that you go, and then royalty sense, like we have a royalty here in our community from Montana Gathering, and I'm so proud every time I walk into a community gathering and I see them there, and they're wearing their ribbon skirt and they're wearing their big old Two-Spirit medallion and their sash, and it's just like, yes, we're part of this. We're in this community. We're everywhere in every aspect. Uh, we're relatives. We're here. We're part of this, and getting to see that royalty, because like, powwows have become a big cultural part of who we are. And then we have so much pride for the royalty that come out of our hometown powwows, and they're supposed to represent our communities and travel and go meet other community members and other royalty, and they have their own rules. And so it's so amazing that we now, as Two-Spirit people, are reclaiming and restoring those rules, and then also creating new rules in this royalty. And it really does mean a lot to, I think, Two-Spirit people who see that when they go out.
I was inspired, like Spirit Wildcat. She was my inspiration because I was like, wow. I was like, and this queen is as tall as I am. I was like, we almost look alike. I was like, I'm coming for that crown. Like,
I love that. What would you, I guess, I know you work with youth, so you probably talk about this a lot, but what would you be telling, younger people coming up into, and like coming into their identity, and, what they're able to do in the world? Like, what advice would you give them?
to me, one thing I do like to tell the youth always is to get love is to spread love, to show unconditional love. It's I don't know, it's inspires people. It gets them, like, to show them that you genuinely love them for who they are. It spreads like a wildfire. And so I just tell them, be safe in your respectful spaces. I was like, always be mindful of your surroundings. Um, when you're finally living your truth, people are finally loving you for your true self. I was like, I know it's not easy for a lot of people in their spaces and where they're from. I was like, but the moment you finally let go and let people see the real you, you finally get that real love that we all want and we all need. And so I just tell them, make it, I was like, one person at a time. I was like, find your best friend, find your mom, your uncle, your auntie, your cousin. Just let them know, hey, this is me. I'm scared. I was like, but I was like, I was like, generally, I was like, people love each other no matter what. And I was like, and it's usually actions that ruin relationships. I was like, so if you're just respectful about it, I was like, I would suggest, letting everybody know the true you.
Yeah, I love that. Outside of your position with royalty and with the Two-Spirit Society, like, what does Sage like to do for fun?
Oh my. So Auntie loves to gamble. I love to travel, but honestly, my favorite hobby and everything is getting in drag. Drag is my favorite. I host my own show. That was another thing that kind of dug me out of the darkness during COVID. Is I got invited to host my own show, and so I was like, okay, well, we'll try it on. We'll see if it fits. And like, honestly, getting in the glam, getting in big hair, big lashes, lots of makeup, the sequin gowns. Like, I just love it. It's just going on stage and being another person for 4 or 5 minutes. It's amazing. And like, it's just the crowd, the roars, all of it. This past weekend, I got invited to Laramie, Wyoming. They were celebrating Matthew Shepard's life. They had his symposium there. And so I got invited to the drag show. And during the daytime, we had a youth show. It was a PG show. They was like, Sage, you can't be doing too much. And I was like, okay. Well, I was like, we're going to do some inspirational songs then for them. And so just coming out, and there wasn't that big of a crowd for the youth one, but just the ones that were there, to see drag queens, drag kings, and gay people just being celebrated for this tragedy that had happened with Matthew. It brought so much hope for them. And after we got done, we did the little meet and greet, and those poor babies, they were crying, they were in tears, they were just like, I feel like I'm meeting somebody famous. It's like, thank you for showing us what it looks like to be comfortable and not give two two flips about, what's going on in the world. There's like, we needed this. It's like, even with COVID, they're still kind of masking up, like double mask, triple mask. And I was like, there's like, are you scared? And I was like, honestly, I was like, I've lived through a lot. I was like, COVID, it's not going to get me either. So I was like, we're just going to live our life, and what happens, happens. And so that whole weekend, it was just nothing but love, and getting to be around and being in drag for the whole thing and getting to walk around town there. It was amazing. I walked into a establishment afterwards and I got a full standing ovation. Like, I was like, oh my God. So I'd live for that. Like, that's my favorite hobby.
Yeah, I love that. I also love like the response that you got from the youth really reminded me of my kiddo. I have an 18-year-old, believe it or not, and they were probably just under 2 when they went to their first Two-Spirit gathering in Montana. And that's when they got to meet Buffalo Barbie for the first time. And they had their little doll, which my aunt had made regalia for their little doll. And so they were carrying it around underneath their arm, but they were so awestruck by Buffalo Barbie. Like, as soon as she walked in the room, my kiddo's eyes were big as saucers, and my kid just followed them throughout the whole room, just watching them the whole time. They were so in love with them. And so, yeah, I love, um, when people who perform, people who like, when you're in those spaces, you're so dynamic. You just swallow. I feel like you swallow us all up into your space, and that's one of the things like I really appreciate about you stepping into this role of being a host for our Skoden Talks with the Homies series. Is like, that's what we really wanted. We wanted somebody who can not only just capture, and talk, and we can hear people's stories and the work that they're doing in their communities, but having somebody that just swallows you up, and you're hung on every word. You just want to follow them throughout the room. It's a magic, I think, that you all have.
I know a little bit. A little bit of glitter, that's all.
I still, yeah, I'm celebrating a 42nd birthday next month, but I still feel like that, like, introverted, shy little Indian kid at the back of the room, like waiting for the elders to speak, And so I appreciate the people that we have in our community, and especially in our Two-Spirit community. And I think it's just kind of like an Indigenous practice of, we throw you in and you'll learn it as you go, and we'll support you as you go. And so I really appreciate that too, because I've learned a lot in the roles that I've taken on, and the growth that I've experienced through my life. But yeah, it's just amazing the work that you've been doing, and how you uplift. And I think it's also important for us to hear how we uplift folks even when we don't know we're uplifting them, right?
Correct. I honestly, drag queens scared the living crap out of me growing up. And so to be able to be this now for some people and make it like where it's not scary, and it's not out of the norm. It's fun. I like doing it. And like, I've changed a lot of people's lives, not meaning to, but it's been a fun journey. I would not change anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you for chatting with me today. My apologies, because I've been talking so much this morning, I'm starting to lose my voice. Thank you for everybody who's been able to jump on this call with us and to hear this conversation. This is Skoden Talks with the Homies series. This is IP3's way of just having informal conversations to uplift leaders in community and the work that they're doing. And that's from every aspect of our lives, right? We're coming into movement spaces, social justice work, any type of work that we're doing, we're coming to it as a whole person. And we just want to, try to encapsulate all of those experiences of who we are, from everything from, identity to food sovereignty, body sovereignty, whatever that looks like, and whoever you look like, we want to try to represent that in these informal conversations. But we are super excited and blessed to have Sage, and Sage will be our new host for this series. So thank you so much, Sage, for taking that on. Um, you can follow our events calendar. You can find more information at ip3.org or follow us on our social medias, including Instagram, Facebook, and we also have a Twitter. We also have a new YouTube channel for all of our trainings. But we're just so excited to have this conversation with Sage today and be introducing her as our new host for our Skoden Talks with the Homies. So thank you so much for all your time, Sage, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next Skoden Talks and who we have coming up. So if you want to know more about our next speaker for next month, be checking our events calendar and also our social media. So thank you, Sage.
Thank you. Thank you so much.